Welcome to Business Talk Sister Gawk. I'm Becca, and today's episode is titled The History of Marketing Part 4. And if you have been following along in this series, fantastic. We are going to be talking a little bit more about things that were happening in the European Union. Because I think we went through what was happening digitally and how things started getting political and all that kind of stuff. And for the record, I just want to clarify that I don't think that these companies are intentionally nefarious at all. I think that there's a lot of people there that truly care and they have a conscience and they're trying their best. But moving a big ship is very hard. Especially with that many people and trying to make change. It's not as quick as two people saying, hey, that's a bad idea. We should fix this. It's a whole lot of processes and technology and programming. Like there's so many things that need to happen when an issue is identified. And the same thing with like all of the rules with YouTube and stuff when they realize that children's content needed to be separate because all of a sudden kids were being exposed to stuff that wasn't appropriate for their age. And all of those things like on the back end take time with so many pieces of content being uploaded and validation processes and reviews and how do we report it? How do we make sure that all of this stuff is safe and appropriate? And how do we make sure that no bad actors are nefariously using our platform, right? And I mean, this is not the only issue that they're tackling. There's lots of people putting stuff out there that is quite frankly not appropriate for other people to see. And so there's a lot of stuff that they are trying to look at the same time. So I'm not saying, oh, somebody is like doing something completely horrible and they're not changing. I don't think that's true. I think that a lot of people in big organizations like this recognize the issues, they're raising the alarm, and they're trying, but it's really hard to do project management of new iterations of technology and the changes that are necessary. And certain things get sped up and other things get pulled back based on priority and based on external pressures. And then if you really think about it too, also based on financial metrics. And I'm also not saying finance people are all bad. Like I think that they are the voice of reason a lot of the time in saying, is that a good idea or not? Because I know a lot of visionary people will say, this is such a cool thing, we should do it, but does it make financial sense? Sometimes when it comes down to keeping everyone employed, you have to say no to things because it's not in the best interest of making sure that you're creating a sustainable product that actually does help people. So that's kind of just my little side comment of our previous episode. And so now we're going to talk about what was happening around 2018 for specifically GDPR in Europe. And some of you are like, what is that exactly? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. Now, actually, this initiation of all of this information was actually being produced around 2016, and it didn't go into effect until 2018. But the goal was to regulate and protect consumers from having their data stolen or leveraged in a way that they didn't know. And this was an issue because they were seeing all of these big companies try to utilize people's data in a way to target market to them. And that seemed to violate a lot of human rights. So they said, no, we're not going to do this. And what I think is interesting about this is that it was a different country that decided to go after American businesses to hold them accountable. Now, sometimes I think that that's actually a good thing because you have people who are writing the laws right now in the United States. Some of them are in their 80s and they don't even understand a lot of the technology that's going on. And you can look at the cybersecurity maturity model stuff that they put in place for the government and realize that they're making things way overcomplicated. And all of these big scary words actually mean super simple things like have a 12-digit password. And you can ask pretty much anyone that's a little bit younger in the NIST compliance space, they'll tell you that the verbiage is super complicated for no reason. And that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And that's like an independent organization that is supposed to help monitor with the Department of Commerce, like what's going on within technology to make sure it's safe and make sure that nobody's being hacked or targeted, like warfare attacks on servers, all that kind of stuff. If you want to get in the weeds on that, you should definitely check into it because it is very interesting, the standards of what government officials are allowed to use and not allowed to use in terms of technology, which makes you wonder what is actually being put in some of those cheap products from other countries that you plug in a thumb drive with. Anyways, all right, we're moving back to GDPR. So what they basically did is they said you need to have a way to disclose that you are tracking people's information, and people have to agree to it in order to use your website. And that's when we started to see these pop-ups on people's screens that said, this website uses tracking. Do you agree? Do you not agree? And some websites, the way they did it, just to mitigate all liability, is if you said, I don't agree, then they'd say, sorry, you can't look at our website then. And some websites, it was like you can choose to have minimal tracking, all these different things they had options for. And you could go to a page on a person's website that talked about their data privacy policies and potentially with that affiliate marketing. Because let's back up to talk about that remarketing. And remember how we talked about the recipe blogs and how they had these ads on the side? That was tracking your experience. And those specific websites were opting in for Google to allow people to have this user profile tracked throughout their entire search history into people's websites. And when you enabled that on your website, you were allowing Google to see what your traffic on your website was doing and how they could keep that in their data profile for that person. So these pages popped up, like compliance pages. You could get one pretty easily with a plugin on WordPress, whatever. But with that, it was basically saying we want more security as well. And so people were transitioning to the secure socket layer at this a little bit before this as well to make sure, when you look at your HTTP of the URL, if it didn't have HTTPS, that secure part, then all of a sudden Google was saying, hey, you shouldn't go to this website. It's not secure. And that meant that somebody could potentially hack into the website and also watch what you were doing, or maybe skim the payments and all this kind of stuff. There's so many things going on during this time period. And I am not as technical as you may believe. So if any of that is something you want to learn more about, you should really talk to a web developer. But so basically they said, you guys need to make it clear you're tracking people. And Google tried to do this. And then the EU came back and said, no, you still are making it difficult for people to find the information. You're hiding it. You have to click to find that you are tracking them and what you're tracking and what you're doing with the data. You need to disclose this. So they slapped a really nice fine on Google. And what I think is actually kind of interesting and not related to this, but kind of wow, what an economic boom idea. Let's go after all of the companies that are making money off us and find them and say, if you want to be in our country, you have to pay these fines and fix your stuff. What an economic development way to get some money. I'm pretty sure France, they were the ones that did the first one and they got a couple $1 billion or something. It's a lot. And actually, this was just a new one, September 2025. What happened is Google was fined 2.95 billion euros by the EU for abusing its power in elevating its products over competitors. Now, this gets into a super interesting space because I'm going to talk a little bit about this because people always ask the golden ticket question of Google in regards to search engine optimization. So I distinctly remember when I was working with Google and all of these different like pay-per-click ads and all this stuff, the question kept coming back to, and I know everybody was asking it for small business owners and stuff. Would it be advantageous to do ads because it actually increases your organic search engine optimization as well? And the Google people are swearing up and down, no, no, no. That is not true. It's like the separation of church and state. We don't get into each other's business. And they would be very, very careful to not ever say, oh, yes, if you do paid advertising with us, it will help your natural organic searchability. Now, there's no data to be able to prove one or the other in this case that I have seen, but there may very well be, and I missed an EU slap fine because I've been out of the space for a while, and I do think that there was some stuff that they did talk about in this regard, but for Google, it's a really hot topic of like, don't mess with that because organic needs to be its own thing. But really, when you think about the fact that you're driving traffic, even if it's paid ad traffic to your website, it's telling the natural organic team that there's a lot of there's a lot of traffic. And so therefore people are pleased with the content and therefore maybe it should rank higher. And I mean, that's out there. I'm not going to tell you that it's true or not true because I don't know. But what I will say is people were asking that question pretty consistently. And when the European Union is looking at all this stuff and saying Google is elevating their products like their Android operating system to try to become the dominant player in the market. Now, Google would say things like, no, that's not true. This one in 2025 right now, they're fighting and saying, we're not doing that. But that's the space that they kind of are operating in right now, where it's kind of awkward because they've become such a staply used product by so many people that what they do can easily become almost like an antitrust claim of like they have almost this monopoly or all this kind of stuff. So they have to be very careful about how they promote their own stuff and the other brands that they own within their ecosystem of products. Okay, but now we're going to transition a little bit to intro the monetization options of the individual creator. Okay, so what ended up happening somewhere in that time period, you know, we're looking at like YouTube specifically, there was this aspect of if you get enough views, then you could start monetizing or putting ads over your content. And I think you had to have like 5,000 subscribers or at least 1,000 or something to even register to monetize your content. And then that would put ads on top of your stuff, right? And I mean, Google was already getting people to pay for ads and they were showing them on top of people's videos pretty regularly anyways so that they could sell ad placement. But because they wanted more quality content, they said, well, we'll give you a piece of the pie. And so that's when you start seeing these people with tons of time and no money all of a sudden start these YouTube channels where they're creating content and producing and then all of a sudden growing a following that now has a pretty significant push behind it where they can do brand sponsorship deals and have products that they're promoting and all of this stuff, which is a new iteration of the individual content producer. And that's when people really started getting into the affiliate marketing. And I mean, like there was affiliate marketing before this, especially within the blogs. So what would happen with that is you could set up a way with different companies. At the very beginning, it was individual creators that had a pretty decent either newsletter following of people that they had subscribed to the newsletter and they would send out stuff there as well as like traffic on their website. And they could use this data to go to manufacturers or brand names and say, hey, I have this level of influence. I will be able to do a product promotion of your stuff if you pay me a fee. And then eventually it became, for micro influencers, they say, I do a free review for you if you give me the product for free. Well, then now there's a whole bunch more SEC concerns about, is this content actually disclosed as affiliate marketing, that you're making money off this? Is this your true opinion? Are you being influenced to say these things? And there's a whole lot of additional legalities around that to say, like, are you truly independently saying, like, this is something that I use, or are you getting paid to say that? And so a lot more stuff started coming out within technology for YouTube as well as Facebook and Instagram, saying, is this a paid sponsorship? Are you cross promoting? And they tried to like capture that as well, because individual creators at the very beginning, because they had a website, because they had a following of a newsletter, they were getting all of this money themselves. And Facebook and Instagram and all these people were like, wait a minute, we want a piece of that. And so how do we get people to do their content on our platforms rather than on their blog, rather than on their email list? We want them to be on our platforms to be promoting these things, because then we could potentially link in some cool thing where, because they're doing these paid promotions and we've made it seamless so that they can get paid and all this stuff, well, then they're creating content for us as well on our platform and keeping people there. And we want quality creator content on our platforms, because if we can have that, then we are curating the best of the best content, and people will come to our platforms and spend more time there. And I mean, that's kind of the freemium model, right? Of, we are the product. Our eyeballs are what they sell ads for. And this whole new way of doing advertising with social media and with Google and YouTube and all of that really changed how money was flowing for advertising dollars. Because before that, it was a lot more TV ad, but now people are watching YouTube. So maybe a lot of people in the younger generations don't even have a TV. And so this was a big transition of advertising. And then with that, because the payouts were not fantastic for smaller creators that didn't have like a mass following, and I think if you look at the YouTube data of like how likely you can become like a really famous YouTuber versus like the data on like becoming a NFL player, I think it's actually harder to become a YouTuber than it is to become a NFL player. Don't quote me on that, but you should look it up because it's super interesting. Okay, so anyways, then we started having this affiliate marketing intro into Amazon. And I don't know if you saw that happening, but over the last couple of years, they've really invested in this. They said, we want to create trust with consumers about the products that are on Amazon. And therefore, we're going to integrate this social element that's never been there before beyond just the reviews. Because people are, I think it's like 70 or 80% more likely to buy a product or something if they have read the reviews and the reviews are good. And they know that they can help people trust what they're buying online. It's not going to be cheap and broken when they get it if they have real other humans interacting with that. And so they produce this affiliate program within Amazon. And then they went one step further and said, you know what? If you don't even want to manage a website, that's so hard. We get it. Just put the products on your website, and when they click on it, they'll go to a preferred shop of your stuff on Amazon where they can buy stuff, and you get a cut of anybody that is buying things on your little shop page of recommended products within Amazon. And then the same thing was true about, like, you bought a product, you wanted to review it, and you could do a video, you could talk about it and its features, do almost like those YouTube channel style unboxings of the product. And then it would be associated with the Amazon listing of the product, and you would get a kickback for that if somebody bought the product or looked at your reviews and stuff. And then Amazon rolled out this whole affiliate influencer portal that allowed individuals to track their progress, their payouts, and most of you probably don't even know this is a thing, but it's a really big thing right now. And so then a lot of Instagram creators started to say, I'm going to teach you how to do this, but then I'm also going to have an Amazon store of the products that I use so that if you want to do it too, you can. Because what a lot of creators were finding is that people didn't want to buy their stuff for the most part, unless you were like a little bit well known as an artist or whatever. People wanted to do what you were doing. And so if you could create a way to provide resources to products that you are already using and you recommend because you like them and they trust you because they've been watching your videos and seeing the success of the products that you're making or whatever, that they would want to also have the same products and they would buy them. And so this is pretty consistently happening right now on like Instagram and YouTube. People can see those products. And there's a lot of affiliate companies out there right now that also offer this integration of tracking. And what else started to blow up a little bit before the Amazon affiliate stuff was this ability to create a course. And then if other people promoted your course and people bought it, they would get a cut of the sale of your course. And so there's this whole back end connection system. And actually, a little bit ago, Honey, which is a coupon generating Google Chrome plugin, actually got in a lot of trouble because they were not attributing sales to the right people and giving them a cut of that affiliate marketing. And this was like true for a bunch of like bigger name YouTubers, and they're like, wait a minute, I sent people to you and you didn't give me a cut of that transaction for their download or whatever. And with that, how they were doing that is what's called a UTM tracking link, which kind of like if you clicked on their stuff and you use that UTM into the next place, it could track you came from that channel, and it would give them a little click. Yep, this traffic came from this. You bought something, therefore we're going to make sure that we automatically set aside a cut of that, and monthly or quarterly or whatever, we'll send you a payment. So all of that is pretty consistently happening in the background, and micro influencers become something that's of value to any kind of brand that wants to get out there. And if you look at specifically like food products, for example, they started to think, how can we connect with these micro influencers? Because based on the Facebook data of like knowing in this study they did in like 2012 that people are more likely to go out and vote if they have a personal connection with somebody who also did that, then that social pressure of influence of trying a new product is something that also has weight. So how can we leverage micro influencers to share something that we want them to be excited about? And if you actually go back and listen to the podcast episodes I did about consumer packaged goods or CPGs, the people who do new food introductions, especially in high-end food categories, will go to college towns or make sure that they're introducing them in areas that have a Whole Foods, because actually it's a influence trickle down of people with high income earning being like, this is a product we want, and then after other people see it and see them enjoying it, then it trickles down to the rest of America. And it's kind of interesting how like people who have more wealth actually influence buying patterns more than we realize. And that's the social influence of actually just honestly having more affluent. Okay, well, we are out of time for this episode, so I am going to transition to the Gawk portion and just tell you a story. So recently I have been, like trying really hard not to be on my phone. And with that, I've tried to just put it away or like put it down as I'm working on other stuff. Well, I have a 1.5-year-old, and so right now it's so cute, but I will just leave my phone places and, forget about it because I'm trying to do other things or trying to not be focused on just like having that consume my life. And my daughter is so hilarious because she will find it like on the coffee table or something, and she's so helpful. She tries to bring it to me because she thinks, oh, this is my mom's, and she'll give it to me, and it is so funny because I'll look at the phone and it'll say too many login attempts have occurred. Try again in 5 minutes. And it's so funny because she usually will just like click, 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 click all these buttons on it until it locks up and won't let her enter the password anymore. And I just think it's so funny because we try really hard to not be on the phone with her unless she's like FaceTiming a family member or something, and we don't want to like make that a primary thing that we're doing in our family. But it is funny that when she gets it, she's just like, "Oh, I know what to do." And she does the same thing with her baby monitor, and it's so funny where she'll just like click the buttons like she knows exactly what she's doing. And oh, it's I love development stages of like mimicking adults and stuff. But anyways, that was my fun little gawk for today. But if you have enjoyed this episode, you should give it a review on wherever you are listening, share it with a friend, and I will see you next time.